any manifestation of energy needs an opposition. There is no motion, there is no possibility of energy unless there is something opposing it. There is no dancing except on a floor against which you can push and move. Therefore, the sense of self depends entirely on the sensation of there being something other. In other words, the general feeling that one side is definitively split off from and separate from the other is an illusion. There is the opposition between energy and inertia, motion and stillness is something that, as it were, is the bifurcation or two aspects of a single process. And they know it's a single process because they can't do without each other. The interdependence of these two sides of things, or two ways of looking at things, shows that there is something in common between the two. And to understand this is the essential key to living in a sane way. Because if you're insane, you're split up. This is a way of saying that insanity is a lack of awareness of relativity. Because all existence is relationship. Now the next point is that if relationship is existence, we are going to discover from this that the existence of any identifiable thing or event in the whole cosmos depends upon, and in an opposite sense is responsible for, the existence of everything else. Which I will illustrate with the parable of a rainbow. To perceive a rainbow, there must be three variables present. There must A, be the sun. B, there must be moisture in the atmosphere. And finally enough, C, there must be an observer at a certain angle relative to the angle of the sun and the moisture. Now, the rainbow is a rather diaphanous thing, and we tend to accord it a rather low reality status. And yet it fulfills all the requirements necessary for a genuinely existent thing. Oh, it's true, you can't grab hold of it. But neither can you grab hold of the moon, at least not yet. And you see, if there were no sun shining, there would be no rainbow. If there were no moisture in the atmosphere, there would be no rainbow. But let us suppose that the sun is shining and there is moisture in the atmosphere, but nobody is around. We only say with great reluctance that there would be no rainbow, because that way of looking at things upholds a particular mythology of the world. The world is something independent of us. This is the great superstition of Western culture, that the world is independent of you. What you see, therefore, depends on the way your senses are constructed. You have certain kinds of sense organs, and these sense organs evoke the kind of universe appropriate to them. Because things are only in relation. When there is nothing to which they can relate, nothing is happening. And the so-called existence which we perceive and that to which it is related come into being together. And I would say rather this: there would never have been a universe before living beings existed unless there was going to be a creature called man. Man living in a future, say, implies in the past a certain state of affairs. In other words, this planet had to come into being with an adequate amount of temperature, oxygen, gases, everything else,
food supplies for the organism called man to exist. Now, where you get two sides of a situation where they imply each other mutually, you have in fact a truly relational and unitary system. So in this way, I would say, in just exactly the same way, life will not start up in a universe to which it really doesn't belong. The whole existence of the universe depends on every individual. It isn't a question of how long you last. The universe is much bigger than you are, and you are very small, but at this moment it depends on you. The universe is much longer than you are, and you are very short in time, but nevertheless it depends on you. The universe in the future, long after you're dead, will still be depending on the fact that you once existed. The universe in the past, existing long before you were ever thought of, still depends on the fact that one day you would exist. And it depends on each person. Just as in your own, when you study your own organism, all of it's continuous. All the so-called parts flow into the others like the motions of waves. Well, in exactly the same way, you are continuous with this environment. And although we have been habituated to looking upon ourselves as separate things, we are no more separate from what's going on around us than each of these waves here are separate from the ocean. We have great freedom of movement, so do the waves. So do the gulls floating in the air. So do the trees waving in the wind. We have a larger degree of freedom than that because we are more volatile. It is the way you are as a living body that evokes the kind of universe that you seek. It is your body which turns the sun into light, which turns it into heat, which turns water into wet and rocks into hard. And in turn, your body is one of the pulsations of nature along with the sun, the rocks, the water, etc. So there's a mutual arrangement. It creates you, or evokes you, or does you, whatever word you want to use, and at the same moment you do it, and you do all of it. The astrologer was right. When he drew a map of your soul, he drew a crude map of the universe. He drew the universe as it was at the time and place of your birth. The universe as it was, as seen from the point of view where you were born. And that was your soul. So your soul, you see, is not in your body. Your body is in your soul, because your soul is the entire network of relationships in terms of which you live. Your soul is the whole universe. But each one of us, as it were, is a different point in it. But all these points in it are the center. So this is an astronomical way of saying, in Sanskrit, Tattvamasi, you're it. Because it all goes together. It implies the infinite, the eternal.